I found a door in my basement that wasn't there yesterday. The inspector never mentioned it during the home inspection. Neither did the previous owners during the final walkthrough. I would have remembered something so distinctive, a heavy oak door with tarnished brass fittings set into the otherwise unfinished concrete wall of my basement. A door that absolutely certainly wasn't there when I signed the closing papers 3 weeks ago. Yet there it stood this morning, solid and undeniable when I went downstairs to check on a circuit breaker that had tripped during last night's thunderstorm. I almost walked past it at first, my mind focused on restoring power to the kitchen appliances before my groceries spoiled. But something in my peripheral vision caught a wrongness in the familiar space, and I turned to find myself staring at an impossible addition to my home. "That's not right," I whispered to the empty basement, my voice sounding thin in the cool underground air. I approached it carefully, as if it might disappear if I moved too quickly. The door looked old, older than the 1970s ranch house I'd purchased. Its wood was dark with age, the grain deep and complex. The hinges and handle were ornate, featuring scrollwork that reminded me of Victorian design. A small circular window of clouded glass sat at eye level, too opaque to see through. Most unsettling was how perfectly it was integrated into the wall. No rough edges, no obvious signs of recent construction. The concrete around the frame showed the same slight efflorescence and water staining as the rest of the basement wall, suggesting it had been there for decades. But it hadn't. I had spent hours down here since moving in, setting up a makeshift workshop in this very corner. I had leaned ladders and boxes against this exact section of wall. Just yesterday, I had hung pegboard here for my tools. The pegboard now lay flat on the floor, as if carefully removed and set aside. I touched the door frame, half expecting my fingers to pass through it, revealing some elaborate hallucination. The wood felt solid, slightly rough, and cool beneath my fingertips. I traced the frame to where it met the concrete, searching for seams or evidence of installation. There were none. It was as if the house had grown the door organically overnight. I tried the handle, locked. I knocked, feeling absurd. The sound was surprisingly muffled, as if the wood were much thicker than it appeared. No response, of course. What had I expected? Rational explanations cycled through my mind. I had somehow overlooked it during multiple visits. The previous owners had concealed it behind storage or furniture. I was experiencing some bizarre form of amnesia. None of these possibilities felt remotely plausible. I took a photo with my phone and sent it to my sister with the caption, "Was this door here when you helped me move in?" Her response came quickly. "What door? That's just your basement wall." I stared at the screen, then back at the door, my stomach tightening. I took another photo and checked it before sending. The door was clearly visible in my camera roll, exactly as I saw it standing before me. I forwarded that image to my sister. "Stop messing with me," she replied. "That's just a blank wall. Is everything okay?" A chill crawled up my spine. I took a video this time, narrating as I approached the door, touching its surface, turning the handle to demonstrate it was locked. Her response was immediate. "Mark, you're scaring me. The video shows you talking to yourself and touching a blank wall. There's no door there." My hands began to shake. I sat on the bottom step of the basement stairs, keeping the door in my line of sight while I tried to process what was happening. Either I was experiencing a remarkably specific and detailed hallucination, or my sister couldn't see what was clearly present in the photos and videos. Neither option was comforting. I called the previous owners, an elderly couple who had moved to Arizona to be closer to their grandchildren. "Mr. Whitaker, this is Mark Landry, the new owner of your house on Elm Street. I have a strange question about the basement." "Oh? What's that, son?" His voice was friendly, curious. "Was there ever a door in the northeast corner of the basement? An older wooden door, maybe leading to a storage area or something?" The line went silent for several seconds. "Mr. Whitaker? How did you find it?" His voice had lost all warmth. "We sealed that years ago, after what happened to our Daniel." My mouth went dry. "Daniel?" "Our grandson. He was 7, playing hide and seek during Thanksgiving. We looked for hours before. He paused, his breathing audible through the phone. Before we thought to check if that door had somehow come unsealed. It always locked from the other side, you see. I don't understand, I said. What's behind the door? Nothing, according to the contractors. They knocked through the wall after we found him. Just solid earth. No room, no passage. But Daniel was there, behind that door that had no business existing. 3 days after he disappeared. Perfectly preserved, not a mark on him. Just no longer alive. I stared at the door, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. But how? We had it removed, the whole section of wall torn out and rebuilt. I watched them do it. We never spent another night in that house after the new concrete cured. Couldn't bear it. His voice cracked. If that door has returned, Mr. Landry, my advice is to leave. Don't bother packing, just leave. He hung up before I could respond. I sat frozen on the steps, staring at the impossible door, Mr. Whitaker's words echoing in my mind. I considered calling my sister to come over, but what would be the point if she couldn't see it? I thought about contacting the home inspector, the real estate agent, even the police. But what would I tell them? That a door had mysteriously appeared overnight in my basement, a door that photographs couldn't capture, and that had somehow been involved in the death of a child years ago despite having been permanently removed? I'd sound insane. I needed to see for myself. Whatever lay beyond that door, empty earth, some hidden room, or something else entirely, I needed to know. The hardware store was a 15-minute drive. I bought a crowbar, a heavy hammer, and a set of lockpicks I found on a display near the register. The elderly cashier raised his eyebrows at my selections but said nothing. Back home, I stood before the door, tools in hand. I tried the lockpicks first, more out of curiosity than expectation. To my surprise, after a few minutes of fumbling, I felt the mechanism give. The lock turned with a heavy, well-oiled click. I hesitated, suddenly unsure. Mr. Whitaker's warning replayed in my mind. Then I thought of his grandson, Daniel. A 7-year-old boy who had somehow ended up behind a door that led nowhere, who had died there, alone in the dark. I needed to understand. I turned the handle and pulled. The door opened smoothly, silently, revealing perfect darkness beyond. Not the murky darkness of an unlit room, but an absolute absence of light that seemed to swallow the beam of my flashlight when I pointed it inside. I leaned forward slightly, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Or rather, what I wasn't seeing. The darkness had a quality I'd never experienced before. Almost tangible, like black velvet pulled tight across the doorway. My flashlight illuminated nothing, its beam disappearing an inch past the threshold. I reached out cautiously, expecting my hand to meet earth or a wall just beyond the doorframe. Instead, my fingers passed into cold, heavy emptiness. Not earth, not a wall. Just space. Space that felt wrong somehow, dense and resistant, like pushing through chilled honey. I withdrew my hand quickly. Nothing had happened, but I felt a profound sense of unease, as if I'd violated some fundamental boundary. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward and thrust my arm deeper into the darkness, up to my elbow this time. The cold intensified, a deep, penetrating chill that immediately numbed my skin. But more disturbing was the sensation of gentle tugging, as if something on the other side had taken notice of my intrusion and was considering whether to pull me through entirely. I jerked backward, my heart hammering. As I withdrew my arm, I noticed something had changed. My sleeve, which had passed beyond the threshold, was now covered in a fine, glittering substance, like frost, but geometric in pattern with tiny hexagonal structures that caught the light. As I watched, the crystalline material began to melt, evaporating into the air without leaving any moisture behind. Within seconds, it was gone, leaving my sleeve perfectly dry and normal. A sound emanated from beyond the door, a soft rhythmic noise like distant footsteps, growing neither louder nor softer, but continuing at a steady pace. Then a second set joined the first, slightly out of sync, then a third. I slammed the door shut, turned the lock, and backed away. The basement suddenly felt unbearably claustrophobic. I raced upstairs, locking the basement door behind me, My hands trembled as I called my sister again. "I need you to come over, right now." "Mark, you're worrying me. What's going on?" "Please just come and bring your camera, the good one." She arrived 20 minutes later, concern evident on her face. I led her directly to the basement, pointing at the door without speaking. "What am I supposed to be looking at?" she asked, glancing around the corner where the door stood plainly visible. "You don't see it? The wooden door right there?" She shook her head slowly. "There's nothing there, Mark. Just the concrete wall." I approached the door, placing my hand on its surface. "I'm touching it right now. It's right here." My sister's expression shifted from concern to alarm. "You're touching the wall, Mark. Just the bare wall." I took her camera and aimed it at the door, checking the display. The image showed exactly what she described. Me standing beside a blank concrete wall, my hand pressed against nothing. "Take a picture of me opening it," I said, turning the lock and pulling the door wide. My sister gasped. "You see it now?" I asked, hope flaring. "No," she whispered. "Your arm, it's disappearing into the wall, like it's passing through solid concrete." I looked down. From my perspective, my arm extended through the open doorway into that impenetrable darkness. From hers, it apparently vanished directly into the basement wall. "Take the picture," I insisted. She raised the camera with trembling hands and captured the image. When she turned the display toward me, I felt a surge of validation. The photo clearly showed my arm disappearing at the elbow into an apparently solid wall. At least this confirmed I wasn't hallucinating. Something genuinely inexplicable was happening. "We need to seal this up," I said, withdrawing my arm and closing the door. "Help me move the workbench in front of it." Together, we pushed the heavy steel bench against the door, then added several storage containers for good measure. To my sister, it must have looked bizarre, barricading a blank section of wall, but she complied without question, clearly disturbed by what she had witnessed. "You should stay with me tonight," she offered as we climbed the basement stairs. "We can call a contractor tomorrow, maybe get the whole wall replaced like the previous owners did." I nodded, suddenly exhausted. "Let me pack a few things." That night, at my sister's apartment, I dreamed of the door. In the dream, I stood before it as it slowly opened on its own. The darkness beyond had transformed into a long corridor lined with more doors, stretching into infinity. From behind each door came muffled sounds, some like footsteps, others like whispered conversations, still others like the laughter of children. One voice rose above the rest, a young boy's voice, soft but clear. "They always come back, the doors, they always find someone curious enough to open them." I woke in a cold sweat just after 3 a.m., my phone buzzing on the nightstand. A notification from my home security system, motion detected in the basement. With shaking fingers, I opened the app and accessed the camera feed. The basement looked as I had left it, the workbench and storage containers still positioned against the wall. But as I watched, the workbench began to slide slowly across the floor, pushed by an invisible force. In the camera's view, nothing was happening to the wall itself. It remained solid and unchanged. But I knew. The door was opening. I woke my sister, showing her the feed in wordless horror. We watched together as the containers toppled over, apparently of their own accord. "We're calling the police," she said, reaching for her phone. "And tell them what? That my basement wall is pushing furniture by itself?" She had no answer. We continued to watch the feed as the last container fell away. Nothing else moved for several long minutes. Then a new notification. Motion detected on the first floor. The living room camera showed nothing unusual, until a sudden drop in temperature made the video momentarily glitch. When the image stabilized, frost patterns were spreading across the lens. The same hexagonal structures I had seen on my sleeve. "We have to go back," I said, already pulling on my clothes. "Whatever came through that door is still in my house." "Are you insane?" my sister demanded. "We should be driving in the opposite direction." "And what if it follows? What if the door reappears wherever I go? I need to end this now." I knew she thought I was being irrational, perhaps even having some kind of breakdown. but she also couldn't explain away what she had seen. My arm vanishing into solid concrete, furniture moving on its own. "I'm calling someone to go with us," she insisted, dialing her phone. "Mike from my building. He's an ex-Marine, works security now." Mike was a mountain of a man with a perpetually serious expression. He listened to our abbreviated explanation, strange intruder, possible break-in, with professional detachment, asked if we had weapons, we didn't, and retrieved a baseball bat from his apartment before accompanying us to my house. The neighborhood was quiet at 4 a.m. as we pulled into my driveway. Everything looked normal from the outside. No lights, no signs of disturbance. Mike insisted on entering first, moving with the cautious precision of someone with tactical training. The house was freezing inside, our breath visible in pale clouds. Every surface in the living room was covered with the crystalline frost patterns I had seen earlier, giving the room an otherworldly beauty despite the circumstances. "What the hell is this?" Mike whispered, touching a frost-covered lamp. The pattern shattered beneath his fingertip, tiny fragments floating upward instead of falling, defying gravity before dissolving into nothing. "The basement," I said, moving toward the door. "It's coming from there." The basement door stood open, though I was certain I had locked it before leaving. A soft glow emanated from below, not electric light, but a faint, pulsating luminescence. Mike positioned himself at the top of the stairs, peering down. "There's something moving down there." I joined him, my sister close behind. The basement was transformed. The concrete floor and walls were completely covered in the crystalline material, which emitted a subtle bluish phosphorescence. In the center of the room where the workbench had been, stood the wooden door, now fully open and floating impossibly in midair, detached from any wall. Through the doorway was no longer darkness, but a swirling, hypnotic pattern of lights and shadows, like a tunnel extending into infinite distance. And emerging partially through this tunnel, still mostly obscured by the dimensional threshold, was a figure. It appeared human in basic shape, a head, torso, limbs arranged in familiar configuration. But the proportions were subtly wrong, the movements too fluid, as if its body wasn't constrained by the same skeletal structure as ours. Its surface constantly shifted, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes transparent, revealing glimpses of an internal anatomy that bore no resemblance to anything earthly. Most disturbing was its face, features that seemed to be attempting to arrange themselves into a human countenance, but couldn't quite manage it, like a failed AI rendering. Eyes too large and luminous, a mouth that extended too far across its face, opening to reveal not teeth but pulsating points of light. "Jesus Christ," Mike breathed, his knuckles white around the baseball bat. The creature's head swiveled toward us with impossible smoothness. Those two large eyes fixed on mine, and I felt a pressure in my mind, not painful but insistent, like fingers rifling through my thoughts. "It came for the curious one," the creature said, though its mouth didn't move in synchronization with the words. The voice seemed to emanate from the air around us, vibrating through the crystalline patterns on the walls. "The one who opened the way." "What are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible. "I am Echo," it replied. "I am Remnant. I am what persists in the spaces you cannot perceive." It extended an arm, too long with too many joints, through the doorway, its fingertips trailing more of the crystalline material as they passed into our reality. "Your kind has many names for us. You used to understand the spaces between. You built thresholds deliberately once. Now you forget. Now you build ignorantly over thin places. Now you are surprised when we find our way through. What do you want?" My sister's voice was stronger than I expected. The creature's approximation of a face arranged itself into what might have been intended as a smile. "To exist, to experience, to remember." Its gaze returned to me. "This one knows. He has already begun to see the patterns, to recognize what lies beneath the surface of things." With shocking speed, it emerged fully into the basement, unfolding into our dimension in a way that hurt to witness, as if its body contained angles that shouldn't exist. Fully materialized, It stood nearly 7 feet tall, its form continuously shifting between states of matter. Mike swung the baseball bat reflexively. It passed through the creature as if through smoke, the momentum spinning him off balance. The creature didn't react, its attention fixed entirely on me. "You will come with me," it said. Not a threat, but a statement of fact. All who open the doors eventually cross through. It is the nature of curiosity. The pattern cannot be broken. "The boy," I said suddenly, remembering Mr. Whitaker's grandson. "Daniel. Did he go with you?" Something like recognition flickered across its features. "The small one. Yes. He followed the lights. He saw wonders before his vessel failed." Anger surged through me. "You killed him." "No." The denial seemed genuine, its tone almost confused. "His body was inadequate for transition, incomplete adaptation. He was returned." "He was dead. Death is your concept, irrelevant to us. His consciousness continues, fragmented but persistent. He walks the corridor still." A chill deeper than the physical cold gripped me. Behind the creature, through the floating doorway, I could see movement in the swirling tunnel. Other figures, dimly perceived, moving in patterns that seemed purposeful but incomprehensible. Among them, I glimpsed what appeared to be a small shape, child-sized, moving with the peculiar energy of youth. "Daniel?" I called, moving forward instinctively. The creature shifted, blocking my view. "Not yet. You are not prepared. Your curiosity exceeds your capacity." "Let him go," I demanded, though I had no power to enforce such a request. "He cannot return to your reality intact. The transition is one-directional for most consciousness structures." It tilted its head, studying me with those unsettling eyes. "But you have potential. Your perception already extends beyond conventional limitations. You saw the door when others could not." It extended a hand toward me, an invitation. "Come willingly, and we will show you the true nature of existence, the reality behind your reality, all the doors that connect all possible worlds." I felt a pull, not physical but mental, a compulsion forming in my thoughts, urging me to step forward, to take that impossible hand, to walk through the floating door into whatever lay beyond. My sister grabbed my arm. "Mark, don't listen to it." The creature's gaze shifted to her, then to Mike, who had recovered his balance and stood grimly beside us. "They cannot perceive what you perceive," it told me. "They are bound to conventional reality, but you are already halfway between. That is why the door revealed itself to you. That is why you will eventually cross the threshold, whether now or later." Like the Whitakers, I realized aloud. The previous owners. They saw the door too after their grandson disappeared. Yes, the thin places call to those who can perceive them. The doors find those who will open them. "And if I refuse to go with you?" The creature's form rippled, its outline briefly extending to fill more of the basement before contracting again. "Then we withdraw. For now. But the door remains, though hidden. It will reveal itself again when you are ready, or to another with the perception to see it. The cycle continues." I looked past the creature to the hypnotic tunnel beyond the floating door, to the shadowy figures moving within it, to the child-sized shape that might have been Daniel Whitaker, lost for years in whatever dimensional space existed on the other side. What would happen if I stepped through? Would I find wonders as the creature suggested? Or would my vessel fail as Daniel's had? My body discovered days later, without explanation for my death. "I need time," I said finally, "to understand what's happening, to prepare." The creature's expression shifted into something unreadable. "Time is also your concept, irrelevant to us, but we will grant what you perceive as a delay." It began to move backward, its form becoming less substantial as it retreated toward the doorway. "The threshold will remain accessible to you alone. When your curiosity overcomes your fear, as it inevitably will, you need only touch the wall where the door once stood. It will reveal itself again. And Daniel, I pressed, the boy, exists as he can exist, neither as you remember life, nor as you understand death. The creature was nearly transparent now, little more than a shimmer in the air before the floating door. Perhaps, when you join us, you will find him among the corridors. Perhaps you will show him the way home, if such a concept still holds meaning for either of you by then. With those words, it vanished completely into the swirling tunnel. The door remained suspended in the air for several seconds longer, then slowly began to close. As the gap narrowed, the crystalline frost patterns covering the basement started to recede, flowing like liquid back toward the doorway as if being siphoned through. When the door finally closed with a soft click, it hung in the air for one moment longer before fading from visibility entirely. The frost was gone. The basement returned to normal. Concrete walls, cement floor, the workbench and storage containers scattered where they had fallen. To my sister and Mike, it must have appeared as if the frost had simply vanished. They hadn't seen the door at all, floating or otherwise, but they had seen the creature, had heard its voice, had witnessed enough to know something truly inexplicable had occurred. We said little as we ascended the basement stairs. What was there to say? We had encountered something beyond conventional understanding, something that existed in the seams between established reality, something that would be waiting for me when my curiosity inevitably outweighed my fear. I did not stay in the house that night, or any night since. I listed it for sale the following week, disclosing nothing of what had transpired. It sold quickly, well below market value, to a young couple with children. I sometimes wonder if they've discovered any unexpected doors. I hope not. I'm living in an apartment now carefully selected for its newness, built within the last 5 years, no history, no strange occurrences reported, no basements. But sometimes when I press my palm against certain walls, I feel a resonance, a subtle vibration that suggests something responding on the other side. And occasionally, in dreams, I hear a child's laughter echoing down endless corridors, followed by a voice calling my name with increasing urgency. The creature was right about one thing: my curiosity is difficult to contain. Each day, the temptation grows to return to that house, to place my hand against the basement wall, to see the door reveal itself once more, to step through finally and discover what exists in the spaces between realities, to find Daniel perhaps and show him the way home, if such a concept still has meaning for either of us by then. I know that someday I will. After all, the doors always find